started asking, where do I like spending my time? Where do I go and I enjoy it? I feel relaxed and I buy into the environment. What is it? Where is it? And the answer was the barbershop. That was the answer. And I went every week. And when I really thought about that, I thought, why do I go to the barbershop every week? Is it so my hair is, as good as it could look all the time? No, not really. I don't go out all the time. I'm not trying to impress everyone. I don't need my hair to be, I wear a hairnet, during the week in the factory. It doesn't need to look great. It was just purely because I like being there. I think when I sat and thought about it, I was taken in by the dynamism of the environment, as I said before, the people coming and going, the faces, the characters, the conversation, the music, the style of the individual barbers, the tools that they have, they're all buying different stuff and trying out new things. And it just seems so energetic and it seems so fresh and so refreshing.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the podcast Chatzzz. And we have a very, very special guest today. Alex, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
So I think I messaged you, was it last week?
Yeah.
Asking to come on the podcast because, do you know Tom Davis?
Yes. Cut his hair this morning, actually.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he messaged me when he came out last week and he was like, you need to do a podcast with Alex. And then I was like, yeah, because it's so cool because we obviously went to school together, didn't we?
Yeah.
The year below. And it's nice to see people doing shit. So here we are.
Dick. That's on.
So what I'm going to do is get you to introduce yourself to the viewers or the listeners if you're meeting someone for the first time or something like that. How would you do that apart from, hi, I'm Alex?
So I'm Alex Culley. I'm 26, originally from Carlisle, just recently moved back to Carlisle after 4.5 years living away in different cities and cut hair for a living. And I've just recently opened my first barbershop.
Yeah. And I was saying the branding's so sick, isn't it? Must be really proud of it.
Yeah, buzzing with the branding, buzzing with the way it turned out. Obviously, in the end, it's a bit, it's hard because you have all these ideas in your head. You have like the brand in your head, you have the name, you have the atmosphere, the vibe of it that you're kind of going for, but you don't know how it's going to translate into reality, into a room. So seeing it come together in the end was like unreal, to be fair. Still sometimes think it hasn't really properly sunk in. Yeah, I'm just kind of like moving with it, but it's mad when I sit down and look at it. Yeah, very, very proud of what I've got so far. Yeah. Definitely.
And why did you pick the name then? Because you said to me before, I didn't want to ask you anything. You said you knew what you wanted to call it.
Yeah. Do you know what? Like the amount of time since I opened the shop where I've been asked like about the name, where it comes from, why have I spelled it differently? It's a name that I came up with actually years ago, maybe even like 3-4 years ago. I think I was just like toying around with ideas of if I ever opened a business, barbershop or not, like whatever I was going to do. I always liked that as a name. I liked the different spelling. I think the brand itself and the name especially, it takes a little bit of maybe almost European, Eastern European, maybe even kind of brutalism. I was quite influenced by that at one point, especially with my work. Quite liked kind of all that they were doing over there. And I think that bled into the branding a little bit. So the K's just makes it look a bit of a harsher word, if you know what I mean. And yeah, that's basically where it came from, to be fair. Yeah. That's
cool. And like when you come in, even like the music and stuff and the way you've kitted it out is just, I don't know, it is cool. Like,
yeah, I just wanted that. What I really wanted to do is, like really just set the tone with everything, with, as you say, the music, the atmosphere, the service that clients will receive, when they walk in. I wanted to do something that hasn't been done here before. We all know that it's not just here, it's anywhere you go in the country. It's a very saturated industry, but saturated doesn't necessarily always mean saturated with quality, saturated with competition that's actually hitting the levels that you're hitting. You have to stand out. It's no good holding yourself to a level, holding yourself to a standard, and then going somewhere and just bending to what everyone else does. I wanted to make sure that I was setting the tone, with everything, every aspect of it, the design of the shop, the interior, the music, and obviously as I say, the service, and ultimately the haircuts, the product. Yeah, it had to stand out. So just try to do things a little bit differently and do it my way.
Yeah, I think it's definitely standing out. So yeah, you're doing a great job so far. So the 3 facts. So you said you struggle with these.
Yeah.
You got 2.
Yeah.
Maybe a 3rd. So let's go into the first one.
So the first one is, and it is a good one, because most people, I think, look at me and know me as being a barber, hairstylist, whatever you want to call it. And I've done it for 6 years. But originally, when I first left school at 18, after doing A-levels, I actually trained for 3 years in a coffee factory as a mechanical and electrical engineer. So I was doing that for the first 3 years out of school, and then obviously transitioned into barbering, into cutting hair.
Why did you do that then? That's such a random thing compared to what you're doing now.
Yeah, do you know what? A lot, like, that's usually the first response of people if I tell someone that I started out in engineering, the first thing I would say is that's so different to cutting hair. And I do get what they mean by that. Like, in terms of the environment, environmentally, it's extremely different. You couldn't probably get, more polar opposites than a salon or a barbershop, which is such a dynamic environment. It's changing all the time. Every 40 minutes or every hour, there's a new person in the chair. There's people moving, people coming in and out. The music changes. Every day feels a bit different. And in a factory, it's so slow and kind of monotonous, and usually a very departmentalized workplace. But I think the fact is, the 2 jobs themselves take the environment away from it. The 2 jobs themselves, being an engineer and being a barber, I treat them the same, whether that's just me or whether in actual fact they are very, very similar jobs. I actually don't think it's a massive change. I don't think it's a big transition. I think the way I approach my work when it comes to cutting men's hair, I do have an engineering approach to it. The work that you're doing in a factory, in an engineering department, is mostly maintenance, which is a lot of what you do with hair, or it's problem solving, fault finding, fixing a breakdown. So if someone comes in here with a problem with their hair, it's my job to fix it. And you'd go through that same process. You go through that fault finding process. You use your experience. You use what you know with the skills that you've got. You then execute a plan with certain tools. And once that plan's executed, you optimize it. And that's where the engineering really comes to the fore. You are going to use your engineering ability to look at something for what it can be, not what it is. And that's what engineering is. Things improve, things develop, technology, cars, anything, everything's engineered, and hair's no different to that. So I do think that my approach now is massively influenced by those 3 years. And even though I was by no means the best engineer, I was by no means the best trainee engineer, I was nowhere near it. But having said that, I did get an insight into how the good ones approached what they did. And definitely, I'd like to think that everywhere I've worked, I've had a job since I was 13, so I'm 26. I've worked half my life now. I'd like to think everywhere I've worked has led to this point, and everything I do now has come from each experience along the way. So I don't think they're actually that different.
I think that's a cool way to look at it. Yeah. When you put it like that, it does make sense, doesn't it? I suppose, like the question I asked, most people would think, working in the factory to being a barber, like you say, it's the environment that's probably the biggest difference factor. Yeah,
definitely. Cool. Yeah.
Second fact.
So
you struggled with these ones, didn't you?
Yeah. I've got them in my head. Right. The second fact would be that when I first left home, moved out from my family home and left Carlisle, I moved to Edinburgh, moved by myself, completely alone. I'd never left Carlisle before on any kind of permanent basis. Didn't go to uni, obviously, none of that. So I was very much stepping into the unknown. And obviously part of that excitement is, the independence that you're going to get, the free reign that you suddenly have over your life, not living with your parents anymore. So in my mind, I'm thinking I'm going to have all these, maybe big nights out in Edinburgh, make some friends, or, my mates from here will come up and have nights out. And just so happened that the day I actually moved was St. Patrick's Day.
Oh, yeah.
And Edinburgh's got a massive Irish population. There's a lot of students from Ireland that come over, etc. And a few of my mates from here helped me move. So we took like 2 cars up, I think, and a few of us went out and got a feel for it. We went into this bar. It was the first bar we went into, an Irish bar. packed, live music. You know for a fact that it's gonna be like that all day. It's, you know, it's absolutely heaving. And we just got lucky, got this booth, managed to get in there, got the coats down, pints, everyone in a round, and then people start kind of coming to this booth that we're in because there's not many of us. Big, there's a lot of space for people. And yeah, before you know it, it's like 10 o'clock at night and we're in a booth with Lewis Capaldi. And it was almost like, I was kind of like, I think I expected it to be like that every time I went out in Edinburgh after that, if you know what I mean. Like, I think I thought, oh, like shit, like this is the first night out, like the first day leaving home. And I'm like drinking pints of Guinness with Lewis Capaldi in a pub. And it was kind of at a time, I actually I'd only just become aware of him about a week before. I think it was when he kind of first, you know, sort of kind of, you know, got to the top of the charts and people were talking about him, people liking him. He was doing all the funny stuff on Instagram and, you know, he was a bit of a character. And yeah, like he was just like up at the front. The live singer gave him his guitar and he was like playing all of his music to this pub and he was just as steam as everybody else. You know what I mean? But I was like, so that's the second fact. The second fact is my first night out after leaving Carlisle was with,
Lewis Capaldi, the best mates in the world, probably.
I don't know. Yeah, it was mad. Yeah, it peaks there. It just went downhill. It was not worth going out after that, to be fair.
That's so funny and random. Then have you got a third one or not?
I reckon I can give a third one. But I feel like, I think this is interesting.
Yeah.
But I suppose it's maybe like a little bit niche. When I was working up in Edinburgh, when I moved there, I was still relatively inexperienced in all honesty. I'd only been cutting hair, I think, full time for about 8 months when I got the move there. So, you know, suddenly you are in a much more professional environment. The shop I went to work out there was, you know, definitely more professional, more expensive. People are coming, you know, with higher prices comes more expectation and a different type of clientele, certain type of clientele. And I'd never really experienced that working in Carlisle at first. And yeah, I can remember it was the Fringe Festival time. So I didn't really know at the time, but turns out, you know, the Edinburgh Fringe is the biggest comedy and arts festival in the world.
Oh, in the world?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's people even in this country don't really realize how massive it is. It's crazy. The whole city, I think the population of the city apparently trebles when the Fringe is on. But yeah, you see famous people all over the streets everywhere. And I was just fully booked Saturday at work as normal and all this noise going on, and it's the Fringe Festival. So you know that it's a bit of a different kind of time. People coming in the shop, tourists coming in the shop, taking pictures, running back out. It's all a bit distracting. And like I say, it's a fully booked Saturday for me. And I was just aware of some guy that had walked in the shop. And I was kind of like out the corner of my eye thinking, it's just another tourist. He'll walk back out, you know, take a picture. I glanced up and Sir Lenny Henry is standing in the door. And none of the other guys, to my knowledge, I thought they're not going to know who he is. And I don't think a lot of people actually at our age really know who he is. Yeah. But he founded Comic Relief. He's a knight of the realm. Like he's knighted.
He's a big deal.
Yeah, he is. Like he's knighted. You know, and the Premier in adverts as well. You know, so that. But you know, so I've just seen him, and I don't think any of the other guys in the shop knew who he was. So I kind of went over him. I thought, oh my God, I'm fully booked. But he's like, yeah, can I get my beard done? And I was on my last haircut. I was actually finishing my last haircut before my lunch break. And I was like, what do I want? Like a ham sandwich or to do Lenny Henry's beard? And I was just like, yeah, fuck it. I'm going to do Lenny Henry's beard. So I just booked him in and did his beard. And it was one of those like just bizarre situations. Like I've got like a cutthroat razor to Lenny Henry's throat. Like, yeah, just yeah. So I always kind of look back on that and I do. After 6 years of cutting hair, it is definitely a highlight. Like it was so random. It's not as if he came to me because he knew who I was or he knew that I could cut hair well or came based on reputation. Yeah. He was just walking past and walked in and it just happened to be me that did it. But it's just so I think that kind of makes it even better in a way because it's just kind of luck just a bit that kind of pushed
being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah. But I think it's one of them. Maybe older generations find that more interesting, but I definitely think it's pretty cool. Like, to be fair,
cool.
yeah.
Do you cut anyone else as famous as that?
Yeah, like, do you know what? It always seems to be that anyone famous that I cut, like famous, so to speak,
Well known, whatever.
yeah, well-known people, it always seems to be that I don't know who they are until they're gone. If you know what I mean.
Although, do you
I
reckon?
think so. I think they value the fact that you don't treat them differently. Like I think a lot of people, you know, they just want that down to earth experience, and maybe they don't always get that. But yeah, I can remember again Edinburgh. I was cutting. I think it was actually weird. It was random. It was like a Monday, and I was completely full. And I actually remember I didn't have a break on that day, so I was start to finish without stopping all day long. And you just, you know, you're going through the motions, really, just try to get through the day a little bit. And this guy bumped in Dermot Kennedy, and it turns out he's got, you know, he's an artist, one of the biggest recording artists I think around now at the minute. Irish folk singer predominantly. I'd never really listened to that kind of music. It's not my thing really. But it was only because, and I maybe shouldn't actually say this on camera because it's probably a breach of like GDPR or something, but it was only because it got to the end of the day, and I think I sent a Snapchat to a few of my mates, and one of my mates replied, and I must have, without even thinking about it, I must have got part of my column on like the shop's iPad on the Snapchat picture. He's looked at the names on the Snapchat thing, and it said Dermot Kennedy. He replied and said, "Is that the Dermot Kennedy?" I was like, "What do you mean?" So I was Googling Dermot Kennedy. I was like, "Oh shit, yeah." And then you start listening to his music. And yeah, I have heard that. He's got like millions of hits on Spotify and all that. So yeah, that's one. And then I don't know, it's random. Like Edinburgh was full of.
Edinburgh sounds
it was.
like
Honestly, it was a little bit like where I worked. Edinburgh had a really good reputation in the city. There were 4 shops, and it seemed like, yeah, things like musicians or actors or whatever. There's a big theatre called the Playhouse in Edinburgh, and there was, I think it was the Rock of Ages performance was there, and Anthony Costa, who used to be in the boy band Blue in like the 90s, just like maybe just before our time.
Yeah.
We were probably more like
babies.
like we were probably like more listening to like noughties bands, but they were obviously big back in the day, and that was another case that I was cutting his hair because he was doing Rock of Ages, and I was standing there thinking the whole time thinking, I really recognise you, but couldn't put a finger on it. And then I think it was like genuinely I was really ill. I remember being really ill that day, and I went home, couldn't sleep, and it was like 3 o'clock in the morning, knew I had work the next day, couldn't sleep, didn't feel well. And I was lying there thinking, who was that guy? And I was like, I'm gonna just Google Rock of Ages, and I was like, there it was, Blue. I was like, my mum's gonna love that. Like, you know what I mean? I was like, I had no interest in it.
You're gonna be so proud.
Yeah, I was like, my mum will love that. But yeah, it's mad.
We've got fans walking back and
forth. We've got a crowd.
Right, so let's go back to a little Alex and what you were like as a kid growing up. What were you like? What would your mum and dad say you were like? What did you enjoy doing?
Yeah, do you know what? It's funny. It's weird getting asked that question, no? Isn't it? Yeah, it's weird to think what your mum and dad would describe you as, isn't it? I think if I was to describe what I think my mum and dad's impression would be of me, I would probably say I was an awful toddler by the sounds of it, because apparently I didn't sleep for 3 years, which I can believe because I feel like I'm still catching up on it. But yeah, I think like I was sporty, I was always active, sociable. I was always a good talker as a toddler and a young child. So I think I did well. I think when I started school, I hit the ground running from very, very early on. I hit the ground running. I always felt like I did well at school. I always felt like going right through primary school and deep in secondary school, I never felt overly challenged academically, really. But at the same time, I also didn't put too much pressure on myself as a child or a teenager, you know, trying to go through that education system, get qualifications. And my parents never put pressure on me either. I think it was more, when I look back on it now as an adult, and you look at maybe how like other adults are with their kids, you know, now, and we're not that age anymore. I think I can look at it and sort of think, well, I was probably given a really good upbringing, definitely. You know, lived in a nice village, lots of friends, family close by, close-knit family. You know, my dad played football, so I felt like I always had kind of mates that weren't mates because he had friends, and we'd go, every Sunday was spent. My dad would play football on Sunday. I'd be there. I'd go to the pub, and I was almost like felt in amongst all that kind of thing from a really early age. So I think that helped as well socially. Like I've never felt, short of friends or anything like that. But I think that upbringing gave me, good grounding. And I think from a very early age, you're around people who've from all different backgrounds, and you're meeting people who've got different jobs. So even as a kid, I never felt like I just spent time with people who were my age. I never felt like I was just, I guess, just had friends from school and they were the only people I really socialised with. Like I said, I felt like I socialised with adults as a child. And when I actually think about that now, to be fair, it almost feels like as I'm saying this, something clicks into place, and it makes me feel as if maybe the ability I have now to be quite adaptable, especially with my job, speaking to clients, and you've got to get on with a 16-year-old, you've got to get on with a 60-year-old. It's.
I was going to say that. Yeah, it suits well to now, isn't it? Like you say, you've got
absolutely
16-year-old crack talking about vapes, probably, and then 6-year-olds talking about pensions.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, talking about mortgage rates or something like that. 100%. Yeah, it's. When I actually think about that now, I think the upbringing I had, the childhood I had, was definitely like that. And I think as well, a massive part of who I am and the way I am is definitely, I think, the fact that I've played football since I was 5 years old. I played for the same team for 13 years till I was 18, so 5 till 18. And for the most part, that was the same lads right the way through. And it's only really, obviously, whatever your childhood is, whatever your situation is, school, home life, sport, extracurricular, whatever things you do, I think your norm is almost what you just think is the norm. Like you just think that's normal. I think it's only really, in sort of adult life that, I realized how kind of rare that was. Like it just made, I think as well, when I say to you before that I never felt challenged at school. I never felt out of place or like it was tough or like I didn't enjoy it. I always loved it. And I think a massive part of that was I never found the transition from primary to secondary hard, because although I knew a couple of mates from primary that I went secondary with, my mates in secondary school were the lads that I played football with, and we didn't go to school before. We knew each other through playing football. I think it's something that, I'm not just saying it's just football. I think if you go and if you go to music practice, you go to whatever it is, and you're in a group of people, that's something that you're going to bond over, and you've got something in common with them all. And I do think when it's a team-based thing and it's a sport-based thing, it sounds a bit dramatic to say it, I guess, but like even at 8 years old, 9 years old, 10 years old, you're kind of going into battle with them lads every week, and you're on their team. You fight for each other even as children. You don't maybe look at it like that then, but you do, I guess. And as you get older, 14, 15, 16, it starts maybe getting a bit more serious, and you grow up and it gets more physical and things like that. And still 8 years since that team finished, when we got to the end of junior level, and we're all still best mates. We all still do a lot together. We all still meet up, and a couple of lads, including myself, have maybe moved away, but we all do something maybe at least once, twice a year. The majority of them still live here. So especially now for me, moving back, I could have moved away for 5 years, and I could have came back and maybe not really had any friends left. Sacrificed quite a lot to go away and do that. But I think those long-standing friendships from 5 years old, that's a massive part of my childhood and my upbringing, who I am. And it continues to be the case today. And it's also been the case when I've moved away. I've, like I say, moved to Edinburgh to begin with. And there was a lad that I used to play football with that also lived in Edinburgh. Straight away, you've got a friend, go meet up, have a pint. You're not out of place anywhere. I never felt out of place, never felt challenged. And if I was to draw on one difficulty growing up, if I was to draw on any kind of challenges maybe in my formative years, it's obviously not. If you know me, you'll know that I'm pretty short. I'm not the 5'4", definitely below average. So that if there's any challenge whatsoever, it was probably, facing up to things like, I don't want to use the word bullying, because I was never bullied, never ever. I was never bullied, so I wouldn't sit here and say I was. But obviously, things are going to get said, things are going to get mentioned. But I think I have a bigger personality because of that. I'm chatty, I'm loud. Sometimes I will take over a conversation. I'm quite aware of that. I know I do that. I know sometimes it's a weakness, sometimes it's not a good thing. But I think I've always wanted to put myself on a stage. I quite like being the center of what's going on. And I definitely think that comes from, trying to compensate growing up. Definitely in the school environment. You go to school, you know what it's like. It's
brutal, isn't it?
Yeah, it can be. Schools, it's law of the jungle a lot of the time.
Kids don't have filters.
It's law of the jungle. It's very much, there's always an alpha mentality. But as I say, again, just referring back to the fact that I always played football, played the same team, in the school football team as a result.
Is that
Yeah.
His ex-football team.
Yeah, I think that was actually half of them. Yeah, very people talking about. But I think being in the school football team, playing for the football team, the people that maybe, I'm not saying any of my mates would be bullies, because they're definitely not. But the people that maybe stereotypically would be the ones that pick on the small kids. Well, I was in with them because of the links to sport. So, I always had my back covered in a way, and it is like that. It is law of the jungle. There is a group. There are always those groups at school. Some of them maybe more introverted than others. I was always in that kind of extroverted group, and I think I am an extrovert, and that's always been a personality trait that I've probably developed to try and maybe deflect, from maybe physical kind of. But yeah, maybe deflects from any physical, shortcomings, so to speak, pardon the pun, deficiencies, whatever. Yeah, I think I've always tried to be the center of the room, tried to be there and try to be a presence and put my points across, happily get into conversations, debates, arguments. Because, I've probably learned pretty early on that you've just got to stand your ground, and I'll say what I think, and I'll be upfront with people. And yeah, I've always made it a thing really from day dot, not to get walked all over. Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
I think, like you say, sport's such an important thing. I feel like everyone
massively
to be involved in, isn't it?
Yeah,
like it's teamwork.
Yeah,
like you're saying about you going into war with them, and you can shout at your mates or like slag them off in the match or whatever, and be like, "Why are you doing this?" Yeah. And when you come up the pitch, you're still best mates, aren't you? Because
that's it. Yeah,
just trying to do your best.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's just trying to do the best, and I think as well, it comes to that it bleeds into everything else. You go into a place of work, maybe, for example, where I went to work after I left Edinburgh in Manchester. That was a place that required high standards, and it required work ethic, it required professionalism, and it required definitely teamwork. You needed to be, helping the other guys out. A lot of what you were judged on there, a lot of what you were kind of expected to do was what they knew you were going to quit hair. That was standard. That was absolutely non-negotiable. It was more about what you did when you weren't cutting hair. Are you sweeping around the other lad's feet? Are you cleaning up? Are you making coffees for other people's clients? Are you making sure that everything's stocked up? There's so much things you could be doing to take the pressure off the other lads who are maybe busy for a bit and you're not, or vice versa, they do the same. And it's that team mentality. If he's not going to run there, I am. If he's not doing that, I will. And then at some point the favour will be repaid. So I do think it's socially, it's important. Work-wise, it's important. You get it drilled into you. I think if you're part of a setup where you want to win, if you want to be the best, which I know the team that I played for, we achieved decent things, and we were a good team, and we had good kind of camaraderie. So I kind of got a feeling from that of being part of something where the atmosphere was good, friendships came of it, but also you knew that if you worked hard and you tried your best, probably good things would come of it. So you start realizing at a young age, well, if I work hard, if I try hard, there's nothing that's going to stand in the way of getting the rewards.
That can beat talent every day, isn't it? Hard
work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard.
And just turning up every day.
Yeah. Consistency. Yeah.
So then going through school, then what did you want to do, or what did you want to be when you finished school? Because I know it's a difficult question for a lot of people, like 16, 18, to be like.
Yeah. Do you know what? Like, I actually had a very, very clear idea of what I wanted to do.
Work in a factory?
At school. It definitely wasn't. It definitely was not work in a factory. that was the most random turn I think I ever took. Obviously, it's turned out for the best, but I actually had a really clear idea from quite early on, I think, in secondary school. I was always, as I said before, I was always a pretty good talker and good speaker from when I was a kid. And I think once I got my head into a lot of books when I was young, I enjoyed reading. The vocabulary was always really strong for my age. I was always told that as a young kid. And yeah, I got it into my head probably maybe around about year 8, year 9, you get into that point where you got to think about GCSEs, etc. I knew I wanted to be a writer. I knew I wanted to write. Yeah. And I knew I wanted to do journalism of some sort. That was definitely what I wanted to do. That could have probably been one of the facts, to be fair, when I think about it.
You got loads.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I wanted to go into journalism, and I loved writing, loved English, probably my strongest subject, along with history. So when I was kind of getting to that point, going through GCSEs and then moving on into A-levels, that was very definitely the route that I thought I was going to take. And when I finished my A-levels, I got into university to study history with journalism. But at the same time as getting that uni offer, I got the engineering apprenticeship offer. And I think when push came to shove, I was never really that serious about going to university. And I just wanted to get a job, make some money, and then figure the rest out from there, which I have, although it's taken a very different path. But I actually did my work experience in sixth form at the Cumberland News. So I managed to get a spot there for a week on the sports desk, which was cool. It was eye opening. It was good. It was a great experience. I got to go in there, go in the offices. You're surrounded by career journalists, people who are writing for a living, reporting, interviewing, and you thrust into it. And I had a few published articles in the News and Star and the Cumberland News on the sports desk, which was it was cool. They put your little picture there with your name, and it's like that's your article. So I think I've still got them somewhere. But do you know what? The overriding feeling I had that week, as much as I enjoyed it, I can remember going in there, I think I was 17, going in there as a 17-year-old and thinking, I don't think this is going to be around for much longer. And obviously I'm at the start of a prospective career. So you obviously want something that's going to be, have some longevity and it's going to last. And I can remember looking around that office and thinking, I don't think it's going to last. It's not going to be here for very long. Yeah. Lo and behold, it's closed. So I obviously had an instinct and it served me well. And I think as well, realistically, if I was going to go down the uni route and do history with journalism, what really were my, career prospects from doing that? It probably maybe go and do a PGCE, become a history teacher, become an English teacher, teach in some capacity, which I didn't hate the idea of. I actually have experience now with teaching people how to cut hair, and I enjoy teaching. I do like it. But it was never what I see myself doing in a classroom environment, full-time kind of capacity. So yeah.
That's interesting. So then you went and did factory work then, yeah?
Yeah.
For a few years. And then what was kind of like the flip of the switch where you thought, I want to change something here?
Yeah, so that I went in there not having a clue what engineering was. Really, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know how a factory ran. I didn't know what it would be like. And I mean, the great thing was the whole first year of the apprenticeship was just at college. So you were just at college for the first school year, if you like. I think the wage was, for an 18-year-old leaving school, not going to uni, not maybe picking up student loans and university debt, credit card debt, whatever else. The wage was good. I think it was maybe about £16,000 a year just to go to college. So I was like,
sign
me up. So that was my attitude. I was like, yeah, sign me up. I live with my parents. I've never had £16,000, waged in front of me before. And it was the first year was just to do a level 2 engineering course. I just finished my A-levels. So going and doing a level 2 engineering course was basically like, to try and compare it was like going back to doing probably your first year of GCSE maths, stuff like that. It was
not very mentally stimulating.
Not difficult at all, and not mentally stimulating, and ultimately not something I was interested in. It was as I've already said, I was a writer. I liked English. I liked history. I liked stories. I liked listening to things that happened. You know, that was always what intrigued me, finding out facts about things and then trying to, you know, make kind of assumptions around it and write about it and try and create a narrative. I liked that, where there's a bit more freedom, a bit more creativity. Suddenly you're thrust into an environment which is all, it's numbers, it's exactness, it's decimals, it's you know, really, really, you know, specifics that you're working with. It's really finite kind of, you know, meticulous ways of doing things to get to an exact outcome. That's what engineering is in that sense. It's a, you know, very kind of logical approach that you take. But having said that, like I say, it was easy. The first year, I breezed through it. It was fine. Picked up the money. Did next to no time at college. Got probably more time off than I was in there realistically. And then, that was year one ticked off. That was year one of the apprenticeship ticked off. No problem so far, really. And then you sort of thinking, right, second year, I'm going to be, you know, going straight into, you know, a factory environment now with a year behind me, and you're on like day release at college. So you do 4 days a week in the factory, 1 day at college. And that was when I think reality kicked in that was not the job for me. It was the environment, the job. You know what? The days when you were given a spanner and said, go have a look at that, go fix that, I liked. I've never been against getting my hands dirty, never been against, you know, putting a bit of graft in, working hard. As I say, I've had a job since I was 13. I'm not work shy, but, you know, the environment in there was the days when you would get given that spanner and told, go have a look at this, go work this out, go figure out. They were few and far between. And the way that they treat you as an apprentice in there was I thought personally, it was not good. You weren't taught very well. You weren't trained. You were moved from one department to the other. You never became a specialist in something. You just knew a little bit about very complex things. And yeah, I think the more time I spent there, you know, the more time I was kind of thinking, well, I feel my brain cells dying. Yeah. You know, every single day I thought I'm getting thicker and thicker, you know, like every single day that goes by. Yeah. And I think, you know what, I think that the turning point was it deteriorated to a point where I think going maybe towards the very end of that second year, I went through a phase of thinking, do you know what? I'm 18, 19. I'm on a good wage. My wage is going up all the time. You know, the more college things that get ticked off, they give you a pay rise. So I was thinking, do you know what? And I'm actually not doing much work. I'm not really going in. I'm not having a hard day. I'm having a long day because it's boring and I'm not stimulated, but I'm not having a hard day. And for a little bit, I thought, yeah, just roll with this. Like, this is fine. Most of the time, no one knows where I am. I'll do it. Like, this is absolutely fine.
Give me a spanner.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, it was like I just have to kind of sometimes look a bit busy. But after a while, I think that very quickly, some people seem to be able to do that forever. Very quickly, I started thinking, well, no, this isn't fine. This is actually now at a point where I'm starting to feel like I'm not getting any fulfillment out of my life. You know, you are there 5 days a week out of 7, and I started thinking, I'm not really achieving anything. I'm not coming to work. I'm not doing anything I'm proud of. I'm not coming in and getting a problem put in front of me and someone saying, you know, go and do this and go and take a bit of pride in it. I never felt like there's anything to be proud of. There's nothing to really do and think, yeah, I've had a good day there. I'm proud of that. I've learned something. I've achieved something. Those days were so few and far between. And, you know, the time in between was really, really not stimulated to me the slightest. The environment, as I already said, wasn't stimulating either. You were locked into your department. You know, it was very much departmentalized, and you saw the same people. Nothing against those people. I got along with most of them. I did, but you know, it was just it just wasn't for me. And I think, yeah, the turning point was definitely the moment. If there's any moment that sticks out, it was when I think I was on a night shift one night, and it was maybe 3 o'clock in the morning, and you're sitting up in the canteen, and you're looking around yourself. Everyone's asleep. I can remember just looking around at everyone else in the canteen. I was the only one awake, and like all these, you know, lads are sitting there, and they just can't wait for 6 o'clock to come so they can go home and go to bed. You know, it's just the longest thing. And I can remember sitting there thinking, right, I'm going to play a little kind of game with myself here. I know them all, I work with them all. I'm going to go around each one knowing what I know about them. And I'm going to just ask myself the same question of all of them. And I'm going to decide what the answer is. And the question was, do they want to be here? Or do they need to be here? And for every single one of them, the answer was they needed to be there, apart from me. I was sat there going, I just felt like walking out there and then. I couldn't, but I felt like doing it. I thought, what am I doing? I should be in bed. And don't get me wrong, I know people work night shifts and I'm nothing against that whatsoever. But in jobs that they need, in jobs that they want, I didn't need it. I didn't want it. I was sat there thinking, this is just not the place for me at all. I shouldn't be here. And I started thinking about, what I wanted to do in a bit more depth. But we all ask ourselves, since we're children, people ask us, adults ask us, our parents, our grandparents, whatever. People ask you for years, what do you want to do? And obviously, you're a kid. The answer is, I want to be a footballer.
Every time.
Yeah.
That doesn't work out for many of us.
No. So, the reality is that's not usually a feasible option. And then you start thinking about other options, start thinking about other things. I think the more you ask that question, what do I want to do? What do I want to be? That's the question that's like up there. There's a lot of questions that you need to answer before that can be answered. And I think I realized that more or less in that moment. And I thought, well, I need to get to know myself a bit more. I need to ask myself the right questions in order to figure out what I want to be, what I want to do with my time, what do I want to achieve. And it kind of, do you know what? It came pretty quickly, the idea that I wanted to kind of pursue, cutting hair, because I used to get my hair cut every single week on a Friday off my barber. And the question that I stopped asking the question, what do I want to be? And I started asking, where do I like spending my time? Where do I go and I enjoy it? I feel relaxed and I buy into the environment. What is it? Where is it? And the answer was the barbershop. That was the answer. And I went every week. And when I really thought about that, I thought, why do I go to the barbershop every week? Is it so my hair is, as good as it can look all the time? No, not really. I don't go out all the time. I'm not trying to impress everyone. I don't need my hair to be, I wear a hairnet, during the week in the factory. It doesn't need to look great. It was just purely because I like being there. I think when I sat and thought about it, I was taken in by the dynamism of the environment, as I said before, the people coming and going, the faces, the characters, the conversation, the music, the style of the individual barbers, the tools that they have, they're all buying different stuff and trying out new things. And it just seemed so energetic and it seemed so fresh and so refreshing, to go in there and it was different every time. You talked about something different. You built relationships with people and that mattered. And that couldn't have been any more different to what I'd grown to hate, which was the factory. And I think that's maybe why it maybe even appealed even more, because it was just the polar opposite, basically.
Yeah. I think it's such an important thing. Like I'll always say to people, what would you do if money wasn't an object? Like what would you do in your free time? What do you enjoy doing? And then probably 95% of people would not say what they do as a job. And I hate it when people say like, you're lucky you've got your barber shop, or I'm lucky I've got my own business. But it's not, because you still have to put in the work to get there. People don't see the years or the hours that you put in to do it.
Yeah.
And it's like, right, say some people need to be at work, don't they, for the money? And if I ask people, why are you at work? Because you need the money, but you wouldn't choose to do that. And then why don't you try and pursue something you enjoy? Because you'll excel more.
You will do better,
yeah. And you'll either be happier or make more money. But then obviously there is some factors, like if people have more responsibilities, families, kids, mortgages and all that kind of shit, which
absolutely
is factors, but you've got to take the risk, haven't you, to get the rewards.
Well, it's entirely circumstantial. Like that, what you've just said there it sums it up. Like it's entirely circumstantial. I could make that transition at a time where I had a lot of time on my hands. I could cut hair in the evenings. I could cut hair on weekends. I started sweeping the floor in a local barbershop on a Saturday just to try and understand how it worked. So I was putting the hours in, but I could put the hours in because I didn't have children. I didn't have a wife. I didn't have, other responsibilities going on. So it is hard. I think what I do think and again, it's not right to use the word lucky because it isn't luck. I actively thought about it and everything I've done for myself. But I do thank myself for the fact that I caught it so early on. I caught it at a point when I could make those changes and I could pursue something that I felt was worth pursuing. Further on in my career, more recently in my time in Manchester, I got quite heavily involved with the teaching side of the industry, and the amount of people that I've taught, these aren't young people, these are adults. I think the oldest person I've taught around about 55.
Really?
Yeah, and the youngest person's 16. So the age range that I've taught is so broad, and they all come in with different circumstances. But that's the biggest thing to understand, is that everybody's situation, everybody's circumstances, everyone's personal lives, everyone's mindset, whatever else, all these different variables and factors, they're all massively different. Everyone's got their own little kind of bubble that they live in, their world. And the amount of people I've taught who've no problem with took to cutting hair like that, 1 session a week, 10 weeks, and it worked, and they transitioned into barbering. And the amount of people where it just takes that little bit longer because they don't have the time to practice. And I understand that. It is entirely circumstantial. And some people get there and they realize it's a bit of hard work and they give up.
Yes.
So you're always going to have people that want it more. You're always going to have people that have it maybe easier, so to speak, because they don't have the external things going on, where they've got to lose something to gain something. Most people don't want to take that, that leap. But I just thank myself that I did it when I did.
Yeah,
really,
no, definitely. What was it like learning that?
Like what? Like learning how to cut hair?
Yeah.
Well,
taking that leap, like you say.
Yeah. Well, as you've already said yourself, like people might say, "Oh, you're lucky you got this, you're lucky you got that," but and I know that and anyone that's achieved anything for themselves, in work or out of work, it comes from hard work and it comes from putting time in. And as soon as I knew that the factory wasn't for me, I just bought my first set of tools, barbering equipment. I asked my barber. I think you've actually done a podcast with him, Mudge.
Oh yeah, Mudge, yeah. So Mudge is legend. Big shout out.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know where he is at the moment. Last time I spoke to him, he was in Abu Dhabi.
Still in Abu Dhabi. Yeah, I owe. Yeah, if we are doing a shout out to Mudge, I owe Mudge a lot. I owe Mudge so much because he, like I say, he was my barber back then, and he was the one that first, I think, he created that environment that I fell in love with. That he's cool,
crazy as well.
Yeah, he's mad. Yeah, he definitely invoked that spark, I think, for me at the start, and he was so on hand for me. What actually happened was he was cutting my hair, and that was when I started thinking, okay, I want to do this. He then went to Australia, and it was whilst he was away in Australia that I started thinking, no, I don't just want to do it. I really want to do it. I know I want to do it. And I felt like there was nowhere for me to turn. I was in full-time work, and the only learning provider around this area was the college. And I knew that was not the route to go down. I knew it wasn't feasible for me anyways, but time-wise, but I knew that wasn't the place to learn. So I sat.
Didn't Mudge teach at the college though?
He did for a bit, yeah, he did. But he did. Right. And then he was so here, there and everywhere. Yeah. And he went, away to Australia. And it was when I was I was just basically sitting tight at Nestle in the factory thinking, sit tight, it'll come. I'll be able to get an opportunity. I knew I wanted to do it. It was on my mind for so long. And then, thank God, he came back from Australia and he was back working around here. And I went and got a haircut off him again and was catching up with him. And I just said to him in the middle of the haircut, I just said, look, I really want to do this. I really want to cut hair. I need out of the factory. I know it's what I want to do. And do you know what? He could have done what probably most people would do at that point and say, yeah, you can try this, you can try that. Why don't you try the other? But he didn't. He he took me under his wing big time, and he told me what I needed to buy. So I bought them. I started doing my friend's hair on evenings, weekends, just trial and error. And anyone that would sit still for 2.5 hours, I would cut the hair. If you sat still too long, I was on you. And yeah, basically, like, a few of my mates also got the haircut off him as well. So we would kind of like book out, like me and Toby would book out like the last slot on a Friday, and I'd get my haircut, and then when it was Toby's turn, Mudge would let me do bits of the haircut. And I kind of started learning that way, learning how he did it and kind of gaining his understanding. But apart from that, for the most part, I was self-taught. I was just going away and kind of making my own mistakes and doing it on family members, friends of friends, whatever, weeknights, weekends. And every Saturday I would go and spend a day with Mudge. Just that wasn't it wasn't a job. It wasn't a moneymaker. I just would go and spend a day with him. And it actually got to a point where, over weeks and weeks, he'd have the same people in maybe every other Saturday, and they would start letting me do little bits on their hair. And there's a guy, Andy, who actually, really, really cool. He comes back to me now that I've opened this place up. And he was the first guy that was like getting his beard done off Mudge, and Mudge was, using the cut through, and it was actually the client, it was Andy that said, if you want, go for it. You use it on me. Yeah. And
I practiced before then.
No, I'd never even held one before. So Mudge, so there I am.
He must have trusted you.
Yeah. So there I am on one of Mudge's clients, with a cutthroat razor lining his beard up. But he's still. We still talk about that now.
He's still alive.
He's still alive, and he comes into the shop and he's like, and we every now and then we mention it, and it's just mad that one of the very, he was one of the very first people, or he was the first person that I ever kind of did that on, and I still cut his hair now, again, now that I'm back. And yeah, so Mudge played a huge part, massive inspiration at the start of my career. And yeah, I was self-taught. Once I think after maybe, I want to say maybe about 8-9 months of being sort of self-taught, still teaching myself, and then cutting hair in evenings, weekends, and doing the factory work. Once I left, the factory, that was when I was at a point where I thought, okay, I need to take that leap. I'm good enough now to surely go work full time in a barbershop in Carlisle. I knew that the standard across the board in the city was what it is. Yeah, to not ruffle any feathers. I knew it was what it was, and I thought, well, I can forge a path here. I could get away with being self-taught here, and just start telling myself I'm a barber. Forget about, stop saying to people, I work in a factory, I'm an apprentice engineer. I didn't want to tell people that anymore. I wanted to tell people I was a barber. I wanted to believe it. I wanted to almost, pretend I was one.
You can be whoever you want to be these days.
You can. And
say you are.
And I think if you go at it with the right intention, the thing with this industry is it's an unregulated industry in this country. And sometimes that's a brilliant thing because it provides accessibility, it provides opportunity, it removes hurdles that people would usually have to clear to get into a job, to get into a career. It's also a terrible thing because it means that all the shit of the day can open a barbershop and have opened barbershops, and it creates this minefield for clients that we live in. But for me, I'd like to think I came into it with the right intentions. I wanted to get good, and I just needed a start. I needed somewhere to start. So that was it for me. I thought, well, yeah, I got an opportunity to work in a new shop in town, and I just went for it. And it was kind of when I got into that situation, I started picking up a few clients, and I thought, okay, well, I'm here, I'm a barber, I'm full-time, I'm self-employed, I'm my own boss, and I'm doing what I want to do, but I'm just self-taught and I'm just of quite a low level. And I thought, well, I am getting away with being self-taught here, and I could maybe get away with being self-taught here forever, but I was still 21 at the time, and I thought, is that what I want? Do I want to just do £10 haircuts for the next 30, 40 years? No, not really. I knew that at 21 years old, I needed to leave. I needed to get out. But I was then presented with another bridge to kind of cross. I needed to bridge that gap, I guess, between, full-time self-taught and someone who can go and work in a big city. And it was then that I, and obviously whatever it is that you do these days, you tend to have, if you've got a passion, if you've got a job that you've got a trade, whatever, you're probably going to have inspirations. You're probably going to have places and people that inspire you. And I had a lot of that through social media, Instagram. You follow a lot of barbers, you see, what they're doing, you see where they're working, you see how they talk about it, what their approach to it is. And the one that resonated with me really straight away was Not Just in Manchester. And I seen that they had the academy. I liked what they were doing. I liked the vibe of the shop, the style of the shop that they had, the way that they were marketing themselves, the way that they were putting it out there, the way they talked about haircuts in such an elaborate manner. I'd never seen anyone do that before. And again, going back to the fact that maybe I have that natural engineering maybe approach in there, just, I say natural, maybe just forced into me for time in that environment. I think that spoke to me, that resonated with me. And I thought, right, they've got an academy. They're 2 hours away. I'm self-taught. I need to get better. So I was like, yeah, go for it. So I signed up to do their 10-week course. I was driving down there once a week for 10 weeks from Carlisle to Manchester, 2 hours there, 2 hours back, 3-hour session. Starting itself as like an 8-hour day, really. By the time you've stopped, fueled up, had something to eat. So on Monday, it was 8 hours pretty much. Drive down there, do the course, drive back. The knowledge I gained, the level, I think the learning I got from that, the levels that I went through as a result of that, it gave me so much confidence. It gave me more foundation and more theory, more why behind what I do within my work. And even if I wasn't experienced enough to always apply it properly at that point, I knew it. And it was in my brain. I knew I could talk properly about hair. I knew I could, to an extent, explain what I was doing off the back of that 10-week course. And that then gave me the confidence to say, okay, I'm ready to leave Carlisle now. And that was when, again, Mudge comes back into it. And Mudge had left Carlisle waiting for his visa to go to Canada, I think. And in the meantime, he'd gone to work at Edinburgh. And when he got his visa and went to Canada, he left Edinburgh. And he said to the guys up there, he said, I've got a lad that's good and he can come up and, replace me. And,
oh, no way. That's so interesting because he's mentioned that on the podcast as well.
Really, yeah.
So he was saying, I was waiting. I've literally just gone to Edinburgh and then I got the visa and then I fucked off and then obviously you went up.
Yeah. So again, I owe the guy a lot, really. He kind of paved the way for me to go up there. And I think I got given good treatment there because I was his kind of
recommendation.
Yeah, it was his recommendation. It wasn't an overly rigorous process for me to get a job there as such. And I got in there and I think upon reflection now, I always look at it and I go, Carlisle was where I started. Edinburgh was where I became experienced and accomplished. And Manchester was where I became really experienced, more professional and very well schooled in what I do because of the standards that they drive, in Manchester and the reputation of the shop. I had to be a part of that. I had to almost forefront it most of the time, especially for my clients. So I always look at it now and I can see a definite journey of progression. And don't get me wrong, there's been times along the way where it has stagnated. I have felt like I've regressed. I have felt like I've gone backwards. But in the end, I've always made the right change. I've always pursued the next thing. I've never settled. I've never got overly comfortable. And I've always been honest with myself. I think that's the first rule I have really when it comes to my work is be really honest with yourself and don't settle for just comfortability. I feel as if I've seen it all now. I've chased the money. I've chased the numbers. I've worked with people that inspire me. I've worked with people that don't inspire me. And it allows you to, I think when you go through all that, it allows you to be really selective over the way that you work. You can cherry pick the right things from each environment. And hopefully now that I have this, to try and nurture and grow with Konstrukt, it's something that I can pick up all the right pieces and put it into this and hopefully create something for other people, other jobs, other lads who were me 6 years ago to come into here and go on that same trajectory that I've kind of followed. it doesn't come without its pitfalls, doesn't come without its stagnations, but I've always been very deliberate over who I surround myself with and where I put myself. And if there's something I've wanted, I've worked for it. I think the interesting thing is when I first went and did the course in Manchester, if I'm honest, a big drive for going and doing it wasn't necessarily the 100% of the reason wasn't to go and learn how to cut hair better. I'd probably go as far as to say 50% of the reason was I was paying so they got to know me.
Yeah.
So that maybe down the line, they go, remember it, he was pretty good on the course. We've expanded our business. He's gone and got better somewhere else. Let's give him a job. And I feel like that seed that I had then, that motivation for going and doing the course, to then going and working for them 3 years later, that never changed. I knew then I wanted to work for them, and I ended up working for them. So I would describe that as, that was my dream job when I was 21, 22.
Yeah.
And I can quite happily sit here now and say, well, I did it. I got there. But that's not to say that in between, I always held that same goal in mind. Like I say, it did stagnate, it did flatline, it did regress. I got distracted by money, I got distracted by other things. But in the end, I refound the path, got there and ticked that off.
I think that's clever though, especially like at a young age, to be strategic in that way. And a lot of people that I speak to will want stuff now. You know what I mean? Say if you invested in that course, you'd have thought, right, after that 10 weeks, I'm going to work with them. If I don't, whereas like you say, you need to be in those circles, don't you? It's not like what you know, like anybody can cut hair.
It's who you know.
It's who you know and what impression you make. So
and
like
what's going to come of that,
Yeah, definitely. So then further down the line, when they need somebody, they think, oh, fucking hell, yeah. Same with me and my business. If I signed a client every time I spoke to them, I'll be fucking laughing. But that's not the case, isn't it? You have to invest in yourself, invest in somebody else, to then hopefully people will be like, oh, he's sound. And then further down the line, when the time's right, then you make the jump and make the move. But I think, like you say, at 21, to think that is quite clever, I think. And not many people are that strategic in the thinking. And maybe you might not have thought that at the time, but maybe when you reflect back and you think, oh yeah, that makes sense now.
I think at the time, as a 21-year-old, I was probably looking at it thinking, is this weird? Is this, is this
in the stock?
Is this creepy? Is it a bit? But no, I think I look back on it now as an older person and more experienced in what I do, and I go, no, that's not weird at all. I think if somebody came to me and said, can you teach me how to cut hair? And in their head, really, the motivation was they liked that place. They wanted to work there.
It's a compliment, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. I'd take that as well. I've inspired them. I've done something right.
I said that to you now and said, oh, can I come and learn? Can you teach me? You think, oh, cool.
I think that's awesome. Yeah, I think I'd embrace that opportunity to do something like that. And like I say, hopefully that's where Konstrukt can get to. Hopefully it can get to a point where within this space we could have 3-4 chairs, and 2 of those chairs are maybe filled by lads that have followed that kind of similar route to myself. I'd find that incredibly rewarding, to bring an opportunity that I had to leave Carlisle for, to bring that into this city and hopefully, elevate the industry is the ultimate aim. I want to elevate this industry. I don't want to cut everybody's hair. It's impossible. I can't do it. I haven't got the time. I haven't got the hands. I haven't got the room. I want to cut the same people's hair for a long time. That's always been my approach. I want to build clientele. I want to keep those clients, and I want that consistency in relationship. But if I can teach people along the way and share that ethos with other people, naturally they will go out and do their own thing, maybe in the area, maybe in the city centre, maybe nearby, whatever. And I'd be quite happy in the fact that I've elevated the industry. And if the industry is elevated, the quality is better, the service is better, clients are happier, prices can go up, clients will pay more, they won't complain, and everyone earns a better living in this job. It makes it even more appealing. I'd like to think that I can play my part in that. I'm not naive enough to think I can do it single-handedly, but I like to think I can do my bit. And at the end of the day, I want to look back when all's said and done. I want to get to the end of my career and say, I'm proud of what I did. I'm happy with the level I reached within my own work, and I'm happy with what I did for other people. Simple as that.
That's cool. How did this come about then? 5 weeks ago you opened, but I'd imagine this idea was in your head a bit more, and when you actually decided to make the jump.
Do you know what? This happened really quickly. This happened really fast, and it wasn't the plan. It was not the plan.
Never is though.
No. This wasn't the plan. What actually happened was I left Manchester in March after 2 years for lots of reasons. Cost of living down there is getting higher and higher. The rent on the flat was becoming unsustainable. Felt as if without my workplace changing and developing and growing, I maybe couldn't grow within it. But there were so many different factors that led to the end. And actually what happened was I left and Edinburgh came calling again.
Yeah.
And what actually happened was that the guys up there, the guys that I used to work for up there, they got in touch with me and said, look, we're thinking of expanding the brand, expanding the business. They've got 4 barbershops up there in Edinburgh, really successful, good reputation, good platform. They said, look, thinking of expanding the business. We've seen all the teaching that you've done in Manchester. There isn't anything like that in Edinburgh, right now. And we think that's something we could do if you'd be interested in coming and setting that up with us and working through that and, being a partner basically. So obviously to me, that was a really attractive, offer to go back to a city that I really loved living in. Me and my girlfriend both massively enjoyed living in Edinburgh. We love it as a place. So it was really appealing to go back there, set up a business with 2 guys that I know. It felt bulletproof really, and to just ultimately do something I've been doing in Manchester anyways, to just, teach people how to cut hair. So it seemed really, really appealing, really attractive, and it definitely was. But I went up there. I didn't want to commit to getting a flat again because the business wasn't set up and it wasn't making money. And my girlfriend's parents live an hour outside of Edinburgh. So we moved back in with them for a few months, and I was driving an hour into Edinburgh and an hour back 3 days a week. I was just doing a few haircuts in Edinburgh, in that time, just to kind of keep myself ticking over, keep myself working, keep myself making a bit of money, and then working on my days off, at home, working on building the business, writing the courses, trying to just pull everything together. And unfortunately, a few months went by, and circumstances changed. They kind of turned around to me and said, look, we've had a few sort of staff members that have left and the business isn't kind of ticking along as it was when we first spoke about it. The money's not going to be available now to do it. And then we had kind of, living circumstances, obviously living with parents, circumstances around that changed. And I was just like, well, do you know what? This idea might be an idea that still happens further down the line. I'd like to think that, if this does well enough and if I can get some kind of academy, education, barber school off the ground in this city, there's no reason why I couldn't potentially go and replicate that elsewhere at all. That would be amazing to do that further down the line and re-explore it. But it got to that point, I just thought, you know what? I've got nothing concrete in front of me. I've been cutting hair for 6 years. I feel as if I'm as good as I can be. I feel as if I'm accomplished, I'm experienced. I've seen how very successful barbershops run. And, you sacrifice a lot moving away. Like, you'll know yourself, like, you move away from home. Years in one city, years in another city, you gain so much from it. You gain endless amounts from it. And I've met people in Edinburgh and I've met people in Manchester, some of my best mates, I regard them as some of my closest mates, speak to them most days still. You gain so much for it, but there is so much sacrifice as well. I have sacrificed time with family. I have sacrificed, family events, birthdays, whatever, anniversaries, and not to mention friends as well. There's so much that I've missed out on over the years of living away. Even just a simple thing like, an afternoon out with a few of the lads, like,
you going to the pub after this?
Yeah, probably, yeah. But it sounds like such a simple thing, but it's over the years, it's a massive sacrifice. It just got to that point for me where I thought, I'm 26. My sister's just had a baby a year ago, so I've got a little niece now, which is, really cool. I don't want to miss out on any of that kind of stuff. And it just felt right. It just felt like the time was right, and everything landed into place. Really, I actually went and I came home and basically just from the word go, just kind of got stuck into it head first. And do you know what? It does feel like everything just happened at the right time. Everything clicked together. And I'm so lucky with the people that I've got around me. I wouldn't sit here and pretend that it's all me, not at all. Like, the support I've got from the people around me, from mates who are in certain jobs who can support me with certain aspects of how to set a business up, running a business. And one of my best friends, Dad's Adrian, he, without him, it probably wouldn't have really been possible at all. The work that he's done with helping with the lease to sorting out tradesmen. He's, involved in property anyway, so he's got a lot of really good contacts. And when we came and looked at the premises and then we started negotiating the lease and getting everything sorted, that was a really, really quick period of time. That happened fast, and we got the keys very fast. And that was thanks to his expertise in dealing with solicitors and all that kind of stuff, and that happened really, really quickly. Then once we got the keys, we just sat down, me and him, and we said, right, there's a date, Thursday the 24th of August. I think this was maybe the 3rd of August, something like that, the very beginning of August. And we just circled 24th of August and said, we can be open then if we get all the tradesmen in between and we get everything done. And there was quite a lot to do, to be honest, as well.
In a few weeks, that's pretty sharp.
We did three weeks from getting the keys to opening day was 3 weeks. And that was, it needed, there was a bit of a damp problem. It needed tanked, replastered. So that was like a week for the labour on that and another week for that to dry. In the meantime, the rest of the place was getting decorated. And then when that was dry, that got decorated. And then it was signage, it was chairs arriving, furniture arriving. The cutting stations are bespoke. So I had a joiner come in, measure up, look at what I needed to put in there. They then got made. They then got wired in because there's sockets inside them. So it was like everything happening. I also was trying to develop my own brand of products at the same time. That's a very time consuming, kind of long winded thing. So, but Wednesday the 23rd, 9:00 at night, it all came together, and I was open at 10:00 on the Thursday and went straight into a fully booked week. And
that's class.
Yeah, but it just feels, and I have to say as well, like my girlfriend Liv, she went away for 3 days to work in Manchester in the middle of all that, and I was close to absolute meltdown. Like I was so stressed when she went. I was so stressed. She's kind of like definitely the rock. There's the rock. She's the backbone to it, without any doubt. Like, and
that's cool. Yeah,
and even like the lime wash wall. The decorator that we got was absolutely brilliant, but he wasn't up for doing a line wash wall. And Liv was like, I've never painted a wall before, but I'll just do it. Yeah. And she just cracked on and did that. And that looks absolutely sick. So many people come in and comment on that. So that feels like it's definitely a feature of the shop now, really. And it just all fell together. The right people around me, the right time. And 5 weeks in, I've been absolutely blown away by the level of support for the shop, how busy I am so quickly. I'm way ahead of schedule already with where I thought I'd be at, business wise, how busy I am. So I feel like there's so much momentum right now with the business, with the brand, with myself. And I'm keen to keep that momentum going. Definitely. I want to get the next guy in quick. I want to get somebody in who's the right character, the right fit for the shop, get that second chair busy, and allow more people to come and enjoy it at the end of the day. I'm sort of looking at around 50 to 60 haircuts a week at the moment. I can't personally do much more than that, but there needs to be more than 50 or 60 people per week coming in and reaping the benefits of having what I believe is what Carlisle has wanted or needed for a long time, and somewhere that cares.
Yeah, I think that's the thing as well in Carlisle, is the standard for a lot of things isn't very high, is there? No. So if you're like above that standard, you will stand out, won't you? And as long as you're around for long enough and you've got the right people around you and supporting you, then you will get noticed and recognised.
I think what gets overlooked, and having lived in Manchester, Edinburgh, and experienced those places, not just in barbershops, but restaurants, cafes, clothes shops, whatever. I think when you go elsewhere, you suddenly realise that all the big names, all the successful businesses that not only are good today, but they've stood the test of time. They're ticking 3 boxes all of them are ticking 3 boxes. The quality, first and foremost, but they're reliable, secondly, and consistent. And that's all I want to be. I just want to be quality at what I do. And people can come in here knowing that it's a standard, it's a quality. They're not going to get shortchanged on the money they're spending with the product that they're receiving. Reliable. I'm here. I'm never not here. I'm always here.
Just leave from the floor.
Literally. So, they know they're going to turn up. I've got a professional duty to be on time for them. They book an appointment. They turn up at that time. I cut their hair at that time.
I think that's such an underrated thing.
Massively underrated.
Yeah.
The thing
especially around here.
Yeah, massively. People book an
so
appointment.
Annoying,
Well, the fact is, what I actually put that down to is disrespect for other people's day.
For the time, yeah.
For their time. You are disrespecting other people's time. And people are busy. You can't just stand there under the assumption that you're the only busy person in the world.
Yeah.
That's a disrespect for other people's day. If you've booked a haircut at 12 o'clock, that's because you've got somewhere to be before or after, and you'll plan your whole day around it. Chances are that might be your only appointment that day. You're going to book your whole day. You're going to plan your whole day around that. So if you're sitting there for another 2 hours, that's not right. And then I think, like I said, consistency. You set standards and you stick to those standards. I have rules in here, even though it's only me. I have rules for myself. And to be fair, those rules aren't rules I've invented or I've created, plucked out of thin air. Those are things that have been drilled into me and hardwired into me from being in good environments and working in good places. I'm not just talking about, hair salons, barbershops. A lot of those values and rules and regulations and standards have come from barbershops. But I started working in the kitchen when I was 13. And I worked in the kitchen for 5 years till I was 18 and went to the factory. So I've got rules around cleanliness, rules around time efficiency, service, consistency. Every meal had to be the same as the last one. Every plate had to be as clean as the one before it and as clean as the one after it. Every fork had to be spotless. So cleanliness and hygiene comes from that. Factory was a food factory. So again, cleanliness, hygiene was big, but also work ethic, approach, think the same way that you would one day to the next, have that consistent approach. And then going through and seeing standards in different barbershops that I've worked in, especially in Manchester, I do have to say, like, some the lads I worked with in Manchester, absolutely top at what they do. Elite level. Like one of the lads in particular, Dan, one of my best mates, speak to him most days. Like I say, he might actually watch this, so big compliment coming your way. He's the best barber I've worked with, hands down. Got so much respect for him as a person, so much respect for him as a professional. And it's funny because we were actually on the course in Manchester at the same time.
Oh, no way,
and then we both ended up working there, and we clicked. We used to sit about after work for hours and hours, sometimes just talking about hair. And I learned so much from him. Really switched on lad, passionate about what he does. I took so much from him, no doubt about it, and definitely took so much from the environments that I've worked in. So that's where the standards comes from. The standard is be passionate. The standard is talk about it, critique yourself all the time. I'm always videoing and photographing my work. I'm always videoing myself working. I like, a lot of the time I think I'll put a video of me cutting hair on social media, Instagram, whatever. But before I've ever posted it, I've watched what I'm doing. I don't want to put anything out there, obviously, that I don't like. But first and foremost, I'm critiquing even the choreography of the haircut. I'll go, why did I go back and do that before I did that? And I'm always looking for the little things, the 1% things. It's a build up of 1% things that will make you work, always get better. And I do see cutting hair as a craft. I don't see it as a job. I see it as a purpose, I see it as a craft. And I think, a craft is something that you try to master, you attempt to master it. And I'm not sitting here saying I'm a master of my craft. I'm not sitting here saying I've mastered it, I've done it, But what I have done is I've worked extremely hard. I've made sacrifices. I've moved away. I've come back. I've continued to work hard. And I think, ultimately, if you are going to try and master something, or if you want to master something, the first thing you probably have to do is accept that it can't be mastered.
Yeah,
You can always
I
get
was going to
better.
say that. Yeah,
That's the paradox.
yeah.
That's the crux of
The
it.
day you think you mastered it is the day you
Is the day that you've lost. The
Yeah.
day you'll never get better again. So if you really want to be the best and master it, and I try and hold that at the forefront all the time. I just think, I'm never going to get there. So just enjoy it.
That's what gets you up in the morning, isn't it?
I'm never going to get there.
Better.
Yeah, perfect doesn't exist. It's not a thing. It's not out there. It doesn't exist. Let's just take a fade for it. A fade could always be stretched out more somewhere. It could always be lighter somewhere. It could always be darker somewhere else. You'll never get there. But a level is acceptable and a level isn't acceptable. So always try and go for the acceptable one and just try and tweak it and try and get that 1% on that. And you'll end up somewhere close eventually.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? 100%.
Yeah. So what is the plans then moving forward? I know we touched upon it a little bit. And obviously, why should people come get the haircut from you rather than anyone else in Carlisle?
Yeah, good question. The plan for the shop, first and foremost, is definitely
get the second chair
right
filled.
now to get the second chair
Not
filled.
by me. It's going to be shit.
Yeah. The next one is without doubt, I need to get somebody else in.
That'd be hard though around here.
It's difficult. I will be honest, it's difficult. I do have, different ideas about how I'm going to approach it, different ideas about who that person might be, but it's really tough because there are not many people that really jump off the page for me that says, that really spell out longevity. And I want someone who's going to come in and I want someone to come in and be a fixture of the room. I want someone to come in and be a pillar of what Konstrukt is.
Right. Culture.
Yeah. I want them to contribute. I want them to be part of it. I want them to be a presence. I want clients to come in for them, not for me. I want them to come in and that's their barber. And I feel like with this industry, it is so turbulent. It's so chop and change. You have to treat people right. So that's the next step immediately. Once that person's in and settled and established, it's repeat. It's get a third chair. And in the meantime, I will be tapping into more of what I really enjoy on the other side of the job, which is, running courses and setting up the academy side of it, because I do believe that this is something that doesn't exist in this area. And one of the first things that people always say when I kind of mention the academy and teaching in Carlisle, people go, yeah, but you won't get, the demand for it here. I don't believe that for a second, but even if I don't have the demand for it, it's not about creating a demand. It's about creating a prestige around this brand and about this business. And I'm not limiting this in the long term to one shop in Carlisle. I wouldn't sit here and say I've got dreams for it to go there and dreams for it to go there. It's open ended and it'll go where it goes and it'll do what I'm capable of doing with it. But definitely want to give people the option to come and learn and get a high standard of education in the job and ultimately walk away after however much time on a course with me and go, yeah, I think I know a few things now and cut hair. And the only other option is the college. Fuck that. It's you're going to go to college for a year, 3 or 4 days a week, and learn off someone who isn't even a barber.
Yeah, and
hasn't set foot on a shop floor for years and years and years. And that to me just screams, you go in for a piece of paper, which, as I've already said, carries no weight in the industry because it's unregulated. You don't need qualifications. And ultimately, you've got a piece of paper. Yeah, brilliant. But can you do the job? I want someone who can do the job. I'm not bothered about the piece of paper. So, and plus, Carlisle's got such a massive catchment area.
Even Cumbria and South West Scotland, though, isn't it?
South West Scotland, West Cumbria, Lake District, all along towards Newcastle.
Yeah.
There's a big catchment area for me to potentially target with the teaching side of things, and it's something that I definitely intend to get off the ground. I think the first 2 months of this was always going to be about establishment.
Yeah, and big but busy.
Yeah, but I'm 5 weeks in, and it feels settled, it feels established, and it feels in demand. And yeah, I think like going into the second part of that question, why should someone come and get the haircut here? Well, first and foremost, if you want to invest in yourself, if you want to, feel good about yourself, you can carry a bit of confidence, it does maybe cost that little bit more. And I've deliberately pitched myself at the higher end of the price point in the area because you want to come here and feel like you're getting what you pay for. And I will provide that service that is definitely worth what you're paying for it. And I think what that stems from is the three things I touched on before: quality, reliability, consistency. And all those qualities, those traits that are definitely embedded into me and hopefully shine through in the way the shop is, that alone is reason enough. I think I'm someone who's passionate about hair. I'm passionate about my clients. I care more about my clients' hair than they do. That's a fact. I do. Someone sits in the chair and suddenly it's not a human head. It's just a canvas for me to work on. It's a blank page, something to create. It's a fight that you've got to win. And I remain committed, and I always have been committed to winning that fight every time. And I want to give people the best. I want to make people look as good as they can. I want to make people feel as good as they can. And that's a genuine passion. That's a genuine, desire of mine. If someone sits down, you are in the hands of passion. You are in the hands of someone who actually cares about how you feel, about how you look, about your morning routine. I think the biggest thing that's massively overlooked by most barbers is the consultation. Everywhere I've worked, I feel like I've become known as the consultant, someone who consults to no end. And that's a massive part of the service that I provide. It isn't a length removal service. It's a bespoke product. And I'm going to ask the right questions, and I'm going to create a set of boundaries for you specifically. It isn't about doing, the same thing as what I did on the person before, or the same thing as what you got last week. It's about having that conversation every time and getting it right, getting it clear. I don't know any other industries where you go in, you pay money, and you come out with something you don't know what it is. But it seems to be the norm in this job. And that's what I've always pushed against. I've always tried to, say to people, well, listen, I'm going to educate you about your hair. I'm going to tell you why I'm doing something first and foremost. I'm going to tell you what you need. And then we're going to listen to your preferences. And then we're going to create a set of boundaries. And that's what I will work within. I'll work within those boundaries, and we will get the right outcome. I always use a bit of an analogy with the Apple store. So you go into the Apple store and you want to buy a MacBook. You walk in and you say, yeah, I'm looking for a MacBook. The guy isn't going to just sell you a MacBook. He's going to say, well, what do you use it for? Do you create podcasts? Do you use certain software? Or are you just going to check your emails? If you're just checking your emails, he's not going to sell you a MacBook Pro, likelihood, unless it's on commission. But chances are he's going to say to you, well, okay, I've listened to your needs. I've listened to what you want. And now I'm going to educate you on the different products, and we'll get the right one for you. It's no different with hair. I'm going to educate you, and you will walk out having paid money and bought my product, which is a haircut, and you'll get the right one. And a really common question you get asked as well is, as a barber, is what's your favorite haircut to do? What's your favorite hairstyle? And I'm not into it in that way at all. I don't have a favorite haircut. I have a favorite hairstyle. My favorite thing to do within my job is to bring out the individuality and the personality and the character in the individual person that is in the chair at any one time. I will find that correct haircut for you. And that's not to say that might be something that's deliberately not perfect. It's not about making something clean and sharp and crisp all the time if that isn't the character of the person. Someone might suit something that a little bit more imperfect, a little bit more rugged, a little bit more, maybe softer to the eye than what someone might deem a good haircut, but that suits them. It's not about doing the sharpest, cleanest stuff. It's about cutting hair to the individual. And that's all I ever intend to do. And that's what you will get if you come to Konstrukt for a haircut. That's the service I provide, and that's what I pride myself on. That's what the reputation's built on. And that's what the reputation will always be built on, because that is the standard that I hold. And anyone that comes and works here will have to meet that standard. And that's non-negotiable, because I don't want the quality to dip. I don't want that unique selling point that I believe I have there to fold and to drop and to ultimately allow this to become one of the same as everything else. It has to remain its own thing. And that element of the service is what does that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that's such a cool way to put it, because that's why people would want to work here, isn't it? Because of them standards and them 3 things that you keep on mentioning, like the quality, the consistency, and reliability. Do you reckon you made any mistakes or regrets?
Regrets? Do you know what? I know this is so cliche to say it. I know it's just probably...
I can see everyone always says this.
Everyone always says it. I know, but I honestly don't regret anything. I can wholeheartedly look back on the journey and say, yeah, everything has panned out how I would have wanted. I'm genuinely buzzing with what I've got now.
I can see that.
I can see a way forward. I can see a pathway to success with this. And the really cool thing is that there's so many people that picked up along the way that, you know, everywhere I've been, it's happened for a reason. You know, anything I would change or you know, it's easy to sit here now and go, I did well at school, I got all my GCSEs, I got all my A-levels, I went and got a HNC in mechanical electrical engineering. But I could have left school at 16 and done this with no qualifications, but I didn't. And it's really easy to sit here and say now, oh, well, yeah, I wish I'd just done this forever. But I think because of everything I've kind of gone through there, if I had done that, would I even still be cutting hair now?
Probably not.
Probably not. I don't think I would. I maybe wouldn't. You know, I would have probably exhausted myself. I wouldn't have had the right influences, the right inspirations. I wouldn't have picked up the work ethics that I believe I have because of the places I've been. And don't get me wrong, as I say, I've been in situations on this journey. It's not all been plain sailing, far from it. There's been challenges, there's been hiccups, there's been, you know, moments where I've been desperate to come home, but haven't. And I think, you know, the what I'm getting at is, you know, I've been in situations where at the time I've thought, I really don't want to be here. I'm not happy. I feel depressed. I feel like I'm not motivated anymore. But it's always weird how you feel like that, you know, in a moment or an extended amount of time, a week, a month, 6 months, whatever. But then a year later, you look back on that period as being a very valuable period. You look back on it and you think, well, okay, it wasn't amazing at the time, but I actually look back on it quite fondly now because of what I took from it. Like the factory for me was horrendous.
You build up resilience, don't you?
Absolutely. You build up, you get through bad times. It makes the good times better. And the factory for me was awful. It did reach a point where I couldn't even look forward to the weekend because it meant I was closer to Monday again. That was how bad it was. I hated it. I couldn't get out of bed in the morning. I didn't like it at all. But the weird thing is I look back on it now and I almost, it's the craziest thing. And I'll never be able to wrap my head around it. I look back on it now and I always think, wouldn't it be great to go and spend a day there?
Like, yeah, just to see
even though as bad as it was,
fly on the wall.
Yeah, as bad as it was, I sometimes think, wouldn't it be great to go back there for one day or for 1 week? Because I don't look back with regret. I don't look back and hold any angst towards it at all. I look back and I think it taught me so much. You just take what you get from everything, take what you can from everything.
You're like a sponge, you
absorb it and then amalgamate it and create something. And that's what I feel like I've done. So I genuinely wouldn't change anything. I don't regret anything. There's nothing that I look back and I go, I wish I'd done that. The only thing, here we go. The only thing, and you still never say never, do you? But the only thing that could have happened and didn't was, again, Mudge comes back into the phrase. He's over in Abu Dhabi, as you know. And the only thing that was a possibility, it was a bit of a conversation at one point, was that I was potentially going to go over there and work like almost, you know, like a guest spot. Yeah. It wasn't a permanent thing. I've never been, so I wasn't going to commit to moving. But that was the only thing, was that I potentially maybe at some point could have or should have gone and worked abroad, but that it could still happen. There's definitely places in the world, maybe I think 3 shops in the world that I would love to go and at least visit, if not spend a day or two working there. One's in Melbourne, one's in Amsterdam, one's in Hong Kong.
Yeah. You've got plenty of time to do that, though.
I would never say never, so it's certainly not a regret. But in terms of what I've done in the UK, there's honestly nowhere else in the UK that I'd want to work. I feel like I've ticked all the boxes I set out to tick. I feel like I achieved everything I tried to achieve in moving away, and it's given me value to come back. And yeah, if I was, at the end of the day, some of the lads I've worked with over that period of time, they've worked in Australia, Amsterdam. I've got second-hand experiences from them. And I know that's maybe not quite the same thing, but you do feel like you gain a more worldly overview of the industry through speaking to them and working with them and picking up things off them and getting to know them ultimately. So I don't feel like I've missed out massively on that. It was never, the whole travel thing was never something that appealed to me really. I was always more, get your head down, work, make a success of it, and all that can come later with a bit of luck. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell. I wouldn't want to push it elsewhere.
Right, last one then. Great strength and great weakness. What do you reckon? It's hard to self-reflect.
This is probably another one that might be really cliched. So I'm sorry if I'm being
cheesy.
Sorry if I'm being really generic. But I think they're actually both the same thing.
Yeah.
I think the nature of me and the experiences I've had in kitchens, engineering, barbering, they all carry a level of exactness with them. And sometimes my problem is knowing when to zone away from that exact nature of the job and nature of life. And I think the big strength, the big weakness, it's the same word, and it's just that it's perfectionism. I think I do overanalyze things. I do think very deeply about things that maybe someone wouldn't even see the thought towards. So I think in every sort of realm of my life, professional, personal, I get things wrong a lot of the time because I don't ever get around to doing it because I'm trying to do it perfectly. And I think it's you know what, that this happened the other day. I think I was writing something down. I was trying to write some lists, something. Yeah. I was doing a stock take for the shop. That was what it was. I was doing a stock take for the shop. So I've got my notepad and I'm writing down everything I need to buy for the shop. But in my head, I'm going, well, I need to write all of the things that I'm getting from one supplier together, and the things I'm getting from the next supplier together, and the things from that supplier together. And obviously that doesn't fucking matter. You just write it all down and tick it off. But if I've written everything from that shop there, and everything from that shop underneath it, and everything from that shop underneath that, and then I think of something else that's from the one at the top and I can't fit it in, I rewrite the whole list.
Oh,
and it's like, you don't get anywhere. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. You don't fucking get anywhere. And it took me 3 days to put the order in. Like, so it's a great thing.
Yeah.
Because it does drive, it has driven standards for me, and it has set the bar high in what I do. And I do think that I won't let something walk out the door if it isn't up to my standards. That's simple as that. So that is a trait of a perfectionist. I won't just go, that'll do. It has to be right. Same with fitting the shop out. I had ideas about what I wanted to do with the shop, how I wanted it to look. And I had people in my ear saying, well, no, why don't you just do this? That'll be easier. Well, yeah, it'd be easier, but it won't be right. You know what I mean? So and that's a good thing. And that's helped. But yeah, that example from the other day with the stock take,
a good example, yeah.
That's where it holds me back. So it is genuinely, I think, perfectionism and I don't like doing things twice. I think that's what it is. But in the end, you do it once, but it takes a long time. Just get it wrong quickly and then do it right the second time would be a better way of doing it sometimes. But I'd say that's it. Yeah, that is it.
That's such a funny example. Right. So any closing thoughts on where can people find you and follow you and all that kind of fun stuff?
Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of like online, Instagram, Alex Culley Hair, and the shop Instagram is Konstrukt Hair. Really original barber names. and yeah, the shop itself is on Crosby Street in Carlisle. So nice and central, loads of parking. And if you want to make an appointment, all of that's done through Booksy. No walk-ins, appointment only. And yeah, you can find the link for the Booksy on my Instagram bio. or the Konstrukt Hair page as well.
Perfect. Right, everybody, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe, like the video, comment your favourite part. Any questions for Alex, leave them in the comment section below. If you listen on Spotify, Apple, make sure to follow the podcast and leave a 5-star review, and we'll see you next time. Bye, 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 bye.
Sick.